AITA for calling my wife fat? I'm a 34-year-old guy working in a physically demanding field, and everyone in my workplace is fit. My wife, who's 32, is fat. She's always been that way, from the time we were dating to when we got married. She knows she's fat, and she's beautiful. I'm perfectly happy with her as she is, whether she loses weight or not, because to me, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. One day, one of my coworkers, Julia, 28, started saying she's too fat to be loved, and that fat people don't get to be loved. Julia isn't actually fat. She's around 120 pounds, works out constantly, and barely eats. I told her that wasn't true and that my wife is fat. Julia turned red and told me I wasn't allowed to call my wife fat, insisting it was insulting and that my wife was actually beautiful and curvy. Now, my wife, Carol, doesn't like the term curvy. She feels it's just a word people use to avoid saying fat, as if it's a dirty word. I explained this to Julia, but she got even more upset, saying she would message my wife and tell her that I was calling her fat. So I beat her to it. I called Carol, put her on speaker, and asked if she'd rather be called curvy or fat. Carol laughed and said, "I hate that curvy stuff. Fat and beautiful, baby." I thanked her, told her I loved her, and hung up. After that, Julia went off, yelling that I was somehow brainwashing my wife into accepting the term fat to keep her from wanting to leave me. She said no woman in her right mind would be okay with her husband calling her fat. I even showed Julia a picture of Carol in a shirt she owns that says BBW on it. Julia stormed off and hasn't spoken to me since. Today I walked into work to an email from HR requesting a meeting. I wasn't too worried. I figured I had plenty of proof of Carol's own fat positivity, including her blog and her shirt, and I could call her for backup. But now things are awkward at work, with Julia giving me dirty looks and ignoring me. So here I am scratching my head. ITA for calling my wife fat?